Hey everyone, welcome and thank you for the fourth session in the Data Cloud Deep Dive series. So today we have Kyle and Matt joining us to share their insights on the implementation of the Data Cloud and all the lessons they have learned and some key points for everyone to keep in mind when we are implementing the Data Cloud. I'm sure this will be helpful and everybody will have a lot of insights, a lot of takeaways from this session. And just a little bit of, I just want to highlight on the upcoming sessions also. There are 3 other sessions scheduled. I would say 4 other sessions scheduled in this series. So all happening every Tuesday. Please check on the time as well. Every Tuesday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're in the other time zone, just make sure that the time zone conversion is working well. So I'll just read out the other sessions that we have lined up. Next Tuesday, we have Sandesh presenting about how to integrate Data Cloud via the ingestion API. And on May 21st, streamlining data unification with Data Cloud. And on May 28th, we have Tim sharing about how to make data actionable within Data Cloud. And we have few more sessions in the works. I'll be scheduling them shortly. So, and a few housekeeping rules before we get started. This session will be recorded and will be posted to the YouTube channel and Learning Camp. And if you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we can answer them as we go or at the end of the session. And anything else, any questions related to the bootcamp or the series, anything else, you can reach out to me. And so with that, I will turn it over to you, Kyle and Matt. Thank you for your time today and thank you for sharing your insights.
Yeah, thank you, JB. So just a quick shout out to the folks that kind of know about SFMC Learning Camp and the YouTube channel. Just wanted to mention there. So JB, thank you for the quality of content that you've helped curate and generate for that channel over the last couple of years. We were talking before the call, just the number of folks that we have referred to that channel and the positive feedback we've heard. It's been outstanding, especially for Data Cloud here. So thank you, JB. All right, so we will jump in. So give quick intros, and then we'll go through kind of the overview or the outline for the session, and then we will jump right in. So quick intro. So Kyle Lassen, I'm leader in the IBM marketing transformation practice. I office out of Minneapolis here in the Central Time Zone. So I've worked with Marketing Cloud, just some context in the background. So I've worked with Marketing Cloud since the Exact Target days. So to date me before the IPO and then the Salesforce acquisition. I help lead the Marketing Cloud user group for the Twin Cities. I've been in the consulting partner ecosystem since 2016, so a little over 8 years. And then before that, I spent about a decade in e-commerce, managing marketing operations for an e-commerce company.
Matthew Moses. I'm a data architect at IBM. I office at Duluth, Minnesota, so just a couple hours north of Kyle on Long Lake Superior. I primarily do data cloud implementation right now. My background is actually, I'm an AWS solution and data architect, and I was building data lake houses to support marketing segmentation and BI and all the efforts around analytics that Data Cloud now is built on top of. So I've come from the heavy data background and began my Salesforce journey only at the beginning of my Data Cloud journey. And here we are today with doing marketing transformation, becoming in-depth in Marketing Cloud, learning, transferring that knowledge from Eloqua and all the other competitors into the Salesforce ecosystem.
All right. Just some more context to set the stage, right? So I think the lens that we will be looking at this through today is really around marketing transformation and supporting marketing use cases. We realize that the product is also evolving, and we're doing some really interesting things related to Customer 360 and sales enablement. But for today, we're going to focus on the marketing transformation aspect of this. Just some additional context. So the team is relatively small number of individuals that we are continually working on project work with in kind of the current setup that we have. So I would say we've got a small group of folks with very diverse backgrounds. And when we've talked through kind of lessons learned before That's true with the different folks that we brought to the table to have this talk and conversation. Our team has a mix of experiences really across marketing automation, sales cloud, Java development, data architecture. One thing our employment history has in common, kind of among the team that is working on data cloud at IBM, is that we've all started on this journey really over the last 2.5 or 3 years. It's been quite a journey. Our team is continuing to evolve, just like the data cloud product is. We feel like we've got learning opportunities almost every day, every week with our existing clients. We've spent the last 2.5 years working to implement data cloud across various clients and industries in several capacities like POC, MVPs, larger implementations as well. So really, we wanted to use today's session to bring forward some of the considerations and learnings from that work. So we're hoping today's session provides some insight as you take your data cloud journey. So the topics that we're going to cover today is around getting the right alignment when working with your clients, right? And we'll talk through kind of who owns what from a platform perspective. We'll give our point of view on implementation phases and kind of the thing that ties a lot of our experiences together and how we kind of look at approaching project work. We'll talk through the approaches to defining use cases and kind of what that means. And then we'll cover getting the right data and getting the data right. And then we have kind of a rapid fire lessons learned from the trenches. I think a series of 6 or 7 bullet points of things that we've learned and picked up along the way, kind of things to look out for, gotchas to kind of avoid related to the work that we've done. So with that, we'll jump right into who owns this.
Yeah, so is this IT or marketing technology? So as Kyle said, we're kind of working with a lot of different clients, and we see IT departments are buying CDP-like products like Data Cloud as part of their data strategies. We know from Salesforce, Data Cloud, as it started as a CDP, its buyers and users are typically on that business and the marketing side, but the data tends to be owned by IT teams. Data Cloud being purchased by marketing technology, but why is marketing purchasing it? Well, typically it's MarTech wants to provide that self-service, that personalization at scale. And if you're like me, with an IT background, you know that IT teams sometimes get in the way. You can't get a segment from IT and says that, oh, we'll give it to you in 6 months. That's where data clouds kind of fit in their picture. So now you've got this question of who really owns this. In the end, working with clients, and as you scale your data cloud journey and you start to work with the different folks you're working with, whether it's in your own company or if you're a partner or SI doing implementations, it's a partnership. Their answer is everybody owns it, and everybody's going to have their different points of views. And really, you need that partnership between IT and marketing to make an implementation successful. You no longer can just easily dump data in and upload a list and be on your way. You've got to know a little bit about cloud technologies, or you got to find out where to get that source that IT owns. So you go back to being that good partner between the various stakeholders that are involved. And when you start to look at stakeholders, the next slide, we look at that kind of, how do you see that division of labor?
Yeah, so some of the ways that we've, during strategy and planning kind of phase and how we've worked with clients to kind of map out ownership over what marketing and IT will still need to partner on in order to enable and ensure success, right? So one of the ways that we've looked at this is really from a role or persona based initially, right? So lots of questions around who owns what going into the work. This is just one of the ways, kind of the first ways that we like to break this down. And typically we will leverage this from a persona perspective. We'll describe these in kind of various ways, but essentially, these are kind of the core personas within the platform, right? We've got a CDP administrator or platform owner. We've got a data roles, right? Who's going to create kind of the pipes of data into a data cloud, and who's going to hydrate the pipes of data. So we've got the data roles, and then we've got the marketing kind of roles and persona, as well as the customer insights and analytics. So this is typically one of kind of the first slides that we surface, especially if we feel like we need to get the right players involved in order to make sure that we have the ability to stand the chance of being successful with with like a MVP or a further implementation. So keep going here. Kind of the next way that we would break this down is really mapping or aligning to the client's org chart. So a couple of ways that we've done this in the past, right? So this is just one example where we have the data elements being owned by IT. We've got with this particular example, the client was Division of Labor, had marketing technology that was actually purchasing the product and was the product owner. We had marketing operations and kind of the key functions, the strategy, the audience creation, and the campaign execution broken out under that marketing operations team. And then we had a separate marketing analytics team as well. Other ways that we've seen this done, right? IT being more of a sales force, like a core application team, a global information systems team that might own some of the core data sources and applications for data that would flow into a CDP. With marketing technology and marketing operations, potentially a global marketing team, marketing operations, potentially operating as regional marketers, and then an analytics and e-commerce team that might sit independently or might be part of underneath one of the marketing pillars of the organization. So just kind of the ways that we like to align this again is starting with the role in the persona based, and then evolving this to map to the existing client kind of org structure in terms of who's going to do what. So a good way to make sure that we have the right seats at the table. We've got good alignment across the organization for really the core elements needed to stand up and operate a data cloud. Keep going. So in terms of our point of view on implementation phases, so like we talked about before, whether an MVP, whether a proof of concept or an MVP, or a broader implementation, whether it's strategy and planning work, or actually starting to configure the system and build against use cases. This is kind of the way that we have looked at those implementation phases. So we've got preparing and defining, where we do some of our strategy and preparation work. A lot of times that consists of interviews, system overviews and process overviews, workshops to really pull out and understand what the team is trying to do. And then that's also where we spend the time to articulate and really define the use cases for implementation and create some sort of priority order around those use cases. Kind of the second piece there is around architecting and design. So determining what is the available data and what are we planning on ingesting. We would also look at the user stories, backlog creation and grooming, additional functional and technical requirements, and then providing a readout and recommendations of the plan to build right before we set up and build. So from a build perspective, that's where we would start to set up the platform and do the kind of system admin activities, administrator activities, user access controls and permissions. That's where we would start to ingest data. And then we've got testing and validating. So, once we start to, build against use cases, being able to have the checkpoint to test and validate, and then the operate and iterate, being able to quickly move through kind of the series of prioritized use cases and continued capability deployment as defined in the plan.
It's probably just also important to mention, while this seems heavyweight and big, you scale it up and down. So if you're doing a POC, many of these phases are going to be quick, lightweight, fast. If you have a single use case, you don't have to do a lot of story, a lot of grooming. So some of these will move very quickly to move through a POC to basically get to the point where you show some of that quick value so that you can do that iteration and add more deployment, add more data, add more value over time.
Expand.
And that's all based on use cases.
Yep, 100%. So one of the things that we've come across, and I'm sure you have as well, working with clients, able to articulate kind of key use cases maybe for MVP, but it's like where do we go from there, right? So, I thought this slide was kind of funny and really resonated, right? So I saw this comment on LinkedIn. This is probably within the last year I saw this on LinkedIn. So it's kind of odd, or I found this ironic and funny that folks still saying that they don't have use cases to support marketing automation journeys, right? And immediately thought like, hey, that translated to we had stood up Data Cloud for a company we had implemented against kind of our key and paramount use cases, and then we had stalled out in terms of what next, where do we go next, right? So how do we help folks identify what use cases, or how do we help define use cases that we can use for our clients, right? So two types of clients: those that know their use cases, those that need help. Set of priorities focused for MVP, but what comes next? What are some ways of helping clients discover the use cases? So the approach here is kind of a top-down or a bottom-up, right? So top-down, looking at marketing goals, being able to take those goals and translate those into potential for use cases. What data do we use for marketing today? What data or what more would we like to be able to do with Data Cloud? So once we have a unified profile and a 360-degree view of the client, like what else can we do with that data? Bottom up, really just looking at all of the data that exists, right? And we've done this for clients as well, right? Like what is the available pool of data? Is that data well defined? Does the marketing team understand what data that they have available to support like ideation of use cases, right? How complex is that data? How do we structure that data? So the point of all of this, right? So we leverage a couple of these approaches, and really one of the findings was, using this to capture a catalog of available data that really combination of a catalog and data dictionary for marketing has really helped us, build a list and then be able to prioritize that list of use cases based on business value. Also, it gives us an available a document for reference available for future initiatives and future strategy development. So in terms of comprehensive assessment, again, what is the top down? What does the bottom up look like? So top down, one of the things we've done is we've examined and analyzed existing journeys in the relevant business units. So what is the client doing today? What are the active kind of always on journeys that exist within the marketing automation platform? Being able to extract the data elements or attributes from those data extensions that support those always on journeys, right? Like the client is already doing this. It's very strategic, and then making sure that we catalog and have those attributes available in that data mapping document is kind of an initial step. The bottom up, and another way to look at this is to go through all of the broader sends that the team has strung together over the last couple of years, and say, are there themes, right? Are there typical campaigns that the team runs in ad hoc or on a batch basis, and looking at all of the available data that support those campaigns. Other ways that we've done this is looking at data attributes available in like a marketing data mart or data views available in other data warehouses or data lakes, and been able to build out the data mapping document from that level and perspective as well. Matt, anything you want to add on this one?
No, it's the reality is you need to know what data is there, but you really need to figure out what do you really need, and you really need to have those use cases to really anchor yourself to move through the process. Without a use case, you're kind of all over the map and what your implementation is really going to look like. And part of that is the data. Everything's rooted in data, and that's you talk about how do we get that right data, and how do we get the data right. So what does that really mean when you're starting to figure out how to apply lessons and figure out what that is? So right data. So when you're thinking about it from the marketing context where we're talking right now, do you have the data attributes you need to segment your audience? Were they identified in your base use case? Make sure that you have that data. What about if you're going to personalize your communications? Do you have the data attributes you needed to personalize your data? Those are going to be the key things that you need for your use case. But normally, at least from our experience, Clients want a lot more than that. And I always have to go back to start with the data attributes you need for your prioritized use cases. You can always add more data. Deleting data is harder and takes more time. And we now operate in a consumption pricing model. So you don't want to just consume data to bring it in and find out you never use it. Real life example, client, we did a top-down, bottom-up approach. We identified, about 700 data attributes across multiple data sources, data lakes, Marketing Cloud. We went live. We implemented most of those on the first go around. And after the fact analysis of all those always on campaigns and some of the seasonal journeys, we were only using 10% of the attributes for segmentation and activation. So yes, marketing said, we got to have this data. We need it to segment to do our job. Turns out most of the base use cases didn't even need but 10% of the data. So you really want to make sure your use cases are focused and you're getting just the right data needed to make those work.
I would say that's a common theme with dealing with marketing operations teams, right? I would say it has been a common theme for us where the team says we need all of the data, right? And so I think the learning here is we've started to challenge that, and how do we challenge that, right? We hyper focus on the use cases and really the attributes that are needed to power those particular use cases that we have prioritized and plan to go live with.
So to continue getting the data right, that comes down to organizing. That's planning your implementation. Lots of people are building some sort of data mapping document. I know that some of the early data cloud classes provided a template that even Salesforce was sharing. The idea is to establish where your data is coming from and where it's going. Where are you putting this data cloud? What data model objects are you using? If you're, we're unifying individuals, so we're going to need email addresses and contact point addresses for doing those segmentation. Make sure we know where that data is mapped from. Profile data to individual, where is it mapped from? Your account data, if you're now exploring CRM-based use cases, where is that going to map to? Did you set up person accounts? Having that traceability to where it came from, to where it'll be in Data Cloud, helps establish a data dictionary. I don't know about you, but from a lot of my previous places where I worked as in data and a lot of clients we've worked with, you ask for a data dictionary and I'm like, oh, we used to have one 10 years ago, or the person who maintained it left the company, so we don't have one. So we've also used this data mapping document to turn it into a new data dictionary, adding some business definitions to provide marketing understanding of what the IT team saw the data. And in some cases, if you're coming from a data background like I did, some of those coding standards for table naming and table definitions don't make sense, don't translate well. So it's good to have that mapping document to help you undo those translations and have a common point of reference. Getting the data right. So data quality, if you're not talking about data quality with your own company or with your clients, you should be. As we think about AI is going to be bad AI if you have bad data. Coming from a computer science background, it's that garbage in, garbage out mindset. If you have low quality data, you're going to have bad results, or inaccurate results, or you might make your AI system hallucinate. Some important aspects of getting the data right is clean up and standardize the data upstream closer to the source before ingestion. We operate in a consumption data model, a consumption pricing model now. If you don't have to redo the data ingestion because you found out it's bad, that's good. You don't want to consume those credits if you don't have to. Things to keep in mind: formulas. We can do a lot with formulas during the ingestion process if you're not utilizing zero copy, but they run during ingestion. They won't back populate data, and they can't fix all issues. Those formulas can only do so much. You can't directly edit the data post ingestion. It's not like you can go run a SQL query and say update these 1,000 rows with this data field. Not available. Batch transforms. We have streaming and batch transforms that are powerful, can do a lot of data manipulations, but they're going to churn through your consumption credits. In keeping with that notion of maximizing data effectiveness, you want data that's complete. You don't want it to have a lot of white spaces in it. You want it to be well-defined, and the notion of currency, i.e. it's relevant, frequent, and it's up to date. Do you really need data from 7 years ago if we're looking at marketing, or really just need the data for the past 2 years? Keep it to the current data, limit the amount of data you're ingesting so you get the right data in a quality way. Keep going. Next slide. couple of things about that. Normalize your data prior to ingestion. Data Cloud, if you're the Cloud 360 model that Data Cloud is using, is a highly normalized data model. That means there's a lot of one-to-many relationships. But normalizing in Data Cloud comes with a cost to your credit balance in terms of the credits you consume. And that's the nature of streaming like batch transforms, and is what I'm referring to there. If you're not familiar with kind of the database technologies of denormalized or normalized data is kind of your flattened data. So if you think of a CRM contact where you've got two addresses, my billing and shipping address, as well as I might have a personal and work email address. When that contact record flows to Data Cloud, it's one flat record. On the mapping screen, you can only map one email address to one contact point email. You can't map both of them in that same mapping screen. So you've got to denormalize it somehow. Take that denormalized data and normalize it so you can process each of those if you need all that relevant data. Another thing that I know has gotten away of a few of the clients I've worked with, data streams, if you're using like batch ingestion, which is how we all started, coming through like an S3 bucket, Data Cloud operates on an upsert model, update or insert. So you want to make sure that every row in the data file's got some sort of unique key. It's either a unique field or combination of fields that define a composite key. We did an initial validation of like, you only imported 1,000 rows, but we have 2,000 rows in the file. Okay, well, we didn't have a unique key defined correctly. So it merged a bunch of records together when it did that update and insert because it saw them as the same record, same key. And the data didn't validate out in terms of our counts they were expecting. So this is one of those things you want to make sure that you understand where your data sources are and what are those things that make the data unique. So that's high level, just some high level thoughts on different things that we've encountered, that we've worked through, that we've seen with clients, that have kind of turned into lessons. So we're transitioning now to kind of a set of quick bullet points here with some practical examples of different lessons learned, different things to look out for, different things that might catch you up when working with Data Cloud on your journey. Kyle, do you want to, anything else?
Yeah, I think, yeah, like Matt said, just kind of rapid fire around some of the lessons learned. So we'll start here.
Yeah, connecting Marketing Cloud to Data Cloud. So if you're coming into the Data Cloud journey and you've been following your bootcamp classes, you're only going to connect one Marketing Cloud instance to your Data Cloud instance. When you do that and you enable that connector, you have this available data bundle, and that data bundle brings in a lot of data. Once you've enabled it and you start bringing this data in, it's almost impossible to undo. The antidote we were given, that someone gave to us, was like, okay, you just made a sweater. Now pull out a single yarn, turn off this one thing. What does that do? How do you disable that? And really, the way it comes in is to understand is a lot of people originally started in their journeys managing contact counts, whether it was in CRMs or their Marketing Cloud, your original data, the original Data Cloud CDP kickoff for Data Cloud. Your contract was based on the number of unified profiles. So you're keeping track of how those came together. Well, your all subscribers table full of all your profiles from across all your business units, all of a sudden now became a profile object in Data Cloud. And now you just brought in a whole lot of profile data that's going to funnel right into identity resolution. So definitely make sure before you start enabling these extra profile-based data sources that you know how you're going to handle it. Know what your identity resolution plans are. How are you going to be, what was your keys? Do you have all the email addresses you need to unify profiles together? Just things to keep in mind that it's hard to, like I said, it's hard to undo. So you want to think first, make sure you understand what you're bringing in with these data bundles so you know what the impact is on various aspects. That kind of ties into the next bullet point 2, which is unified profiles. Enable an identity resolution, know your keys and your data source priorities. So this ties back into the first one. What are your sources of profile data? Where are you getting profiles for individuals? And if you're now operating in the CRM space as well, where are you getting accounts? Know what's involved. Where possible, if you haven't explored it, look at the party identification model to help you with matching. Party identification is a way of using IDs, various IDs tied to as a quote party tied to an individual, tied to a account to help you resolve your identity resolution to make them build those unified profiles. One gotcha I encountered myself just recently. I was working on a data cloud to CRM implementation using the new account unification that came out basically last fall and rolled out earlier this year. We wanted to match, we know that they've got a lot of bad data on street addresses. We wanted to just try to match on city and states, because we know the company had a few offices in the same town. We wanted them all to appear as one account. Well, it wasn't documented, but address line 1 is a required match element. Taking advantage of the partner Slack channel, kind of started asking questions and found out actually that even applies for individuals. I just never encountered it for individuals because we always unified by email and a few other keys. But if you're unifying with addresses, which you have to do with accounts, just know that address line 1 is a requirement. They are improving and have been improving the match capability there with fuzzy matching. So it's getting it better, but there are still some edge cases that it falls apart. Working with unified profiles, make sure you're building your calculated insights against that unified link individual or account so that you have ways to see that data when you're actually trying to use it for marketing. Because if you're going to try to select attributes for activation that are coming from those, if you've calculated a lifetime value score, you want to make sure it's on that right level of detail. When you segment, you have to decide, are you segment on an individual or a unified individual? So you got to make sure your calculated insights are at the right grain. Otherwise, you're rebuilding your calculated insights. The other caveat I would say is start using unified profiles right away, even if you have a very low match rate. Just going back to doing calculated insights, you don't want to have to redo work. The goal and power of Data Cloud is that unified profile, is that customer 360. So even if you only have one source of profile data, so nothing gets unified, but if you're building that against those unified profiles, when you bring in a new data source that's got profile data, you're already set up to bring that data in and just update your identity resolution rules to account for the new data set. When we talk about marketing and doing segments, there's a wonderful feature rolled out last summer called nested segments. It gave us the ability to push one segment into another. The caveat with that is the maximum number of filters in this segment is 50. So when you think about your criteria in your segment, you can have basically 50 filter values. When you start nesting segments, you run into problems. We have 2 ways to nest segments. You use segment criteria or you use the last published membership. If you're using the segment criteria option, then you get to 50 really fast. So if I've got 10 in filter A and I brought in I nested a segment and that had 20, all of a sudden I've already used 30 of my available 50 because I'm using the segment criteria. So what's happening is it's evaluating all the right criteria in the context of the segment I'm working in right now. If instead you nested a segment based on its last published membership, then it only counts as 1 because that segment's been published. It's an identified published segment. The only challenge is you need to know what your refresh schedule is and your refresh timing is, because if you have that dependency, if the other one hasn't run and this one runs, you're going to have some challenges. You might need to use flow and some things, flow to maybe schedule your segment publish so they happen in the right order. But that's one way to deal with trying to that limit of 50 filters in a segment. Batch transforms and consumption. So I mentioned this a little bit about when we talked about normalizing data. This is really good for flattening data, dealing with that multiple addresses and multiple physical mailing addresses. This it's been highly valuable for me on a CRM project I'm working on with Data Cloud right now. The caveat is batch transforms process the entire data set for every execution. So every time a batch transform runs, if your source data has 1 million rows, it's going to reread that 1 million rows. So if you were to schedule that to process hourly, you're going to be burning 2,000 credits every hour for your 1 million rows, even if that data didn't change. Now, that's problematic. So we were working on implementation and started wires. We noticed we were consuming credits. We talked to Salesforce and figured out, yep, batch transforms only work on an entire execution. So we had to kind of rethink how we were doing some things. Now, safe harbor, safe harbor rules, It's rumored, and we've been told they are working on a Delta-based batch transform. When we're going to see it, we don't know. But that is in the works because of the problems with, batch transforms always looking at how are they going to calculate a delta? That's where we're kind of waiting to hear about. And I'm hoping the deep dive we get to attend in June for the newer summer release, maybe will give us some insight of what's coming or some pilots so we can try out. But just keep that in mind. In the data cloud world we operate now based on consumption, you're going to have to look at all those levers that you have to flip that are going to consume data. And your two biggest ones typically when you start up is going to be your initial data ingestion and any transforms you're doing. If you're doing marketing, then once you start doing marketing segmentation, that's probably where you're going to burn credits. And then the big one, identity resolution. Every time identity resolution runs, it's 100,000 credits for every million rows processed. Now, processed, they're getting smarter. The new incremental way is smarter. I've watched it running on a client's data set, and there's only a couple thousand records being processed instead of a couple million, which is good. So they're continuing to make that better and better, but it's still pricey. So you want to keep consumption in mind as you're looking on your solution for your client or in your company yourself. If you're working for you're working on data cloud within your company and not a partner. If you want to go next. Jason, just because we were just talking about transforms, I see your comment. Yeah, batch transforms are full overwrite. And you can't use the same input and output DLO. That is absolutely correct. When you're working with batch transforms, and what I've found you have to do is create if I'm taking a denormalized data, like I've got a contact and I want to split the billing and shipping into two records, you have to put that into a new DLO, and then you can take that new DLO and map that to an address. You can't rewrite into the same DLO over and over. That is an important caveat to definitely call out. Bad missing data. We all encounter this. We've all dealt with this. I know that our first few implementations, we were like, we got a bad data file. We missed the data. We had the wrong data type. There's definitely from easy to complex in terms of how hard it's going to be to deal with that. If it's a file and you can do a full refresh and it's just changing the data type, that's an easy fix early on in the implementation. In the mid, when you're fixing data types for columns, you can do some things with unmap the column, re-import, have it rescan, bring the column in, and change the data type, and it'll, you can repress and do a full refresh. What gets into complexity is once you started building segments, you start building activations. To undo those, to have to change a core data stream element or a unique key, it means you can't have anything referencing that date, the DMO, the DLO, nothing can be referencing. So if you have the data mapping, that's got to be gone. But deleted data mapping, you have to delete everything that's using that data model object, which means if you have an activation, an insight, a segment against the data model object that's mapped, you would have to delete that. Now, there is a workaround here if you have more than one data type. So if you, and I was working with this in example, talk about in just a second, we had a data stream coming from S3. We also had a data stream we're starting to populate from another data source. It's the same data format. You could unmap one of those and leave the other one there because you still have your integrity all the way through. But you'll find it's harder and harder to delete data the longer you've been, the more you've been using it. That data stream is hard to undo. So planning ahead of time and having that mapping document to organize your data is an important aspect of helping you control and deal with bad or missing data. Now, there is ways to delete data. You can, like in a cloud storage, you can send a special delete file to have it remove data, but that's not the same as fixing bad data types or things that might have already propagated downstream. Moving on a little bit further, if everybody's paying attention, there's a lot of talk about zero copy this week. A lot of the zero copy stuff is fully GA, fully available. Working with a client who was in the Bring Your Own Lake pilot with Snowflake. One of the things caveats I'll call out is make sure you have data type alignment between your source schema and your data. Like in our case, we were dealing with Snowflake and the data model object in question. So if you've done any data model mapping and you look at the individual DMO, the ID field, the individual ID on the DMO is a text field. In our case, in our client Snowflake system, that unique identifier was actually a number field, a number-based field. So when we created a data stream from on the Snowflake zero copy, you couldn't actually map it to the DMO because there's a data type misalignment. That meant we had to go back, they had to go back and change the Snowflake schema, and they added an extra column, a text version of the data ID, so we were able to complete that mapping. So you definitely, if you're looking at zero copy, the upfront gotcha, look at those data types, know what data model objects you're going to map to, and verify that your source, data lake, whether it's Snowflake or Databricks, Redshift, is aligned on the same types, or else you're going to need to create some views. Materialized views and Snowflakes are a great way to do that to help also limit the amount of data. That's the data cloud's going to get the query. But definitely make sure you look at that data type alignment. At the time we were doing the pilot, formulas were not available on data stream connections built on the bring your own lake. So we built the Snowflake data stream, we couldn't create a formula. So why was I doing formulas? That's one of the ways I was creating a composite key. We knew that the data mart table, being a kind of flattened, denormalized table, needed 3 columns to uniquely identify a row. Well, we can't do that. And I haven't validated this with the GA, but we couldn't do that at the time because we couldn't create a formula to have it read that and use that when it was actually mapped to the DMO. So again, that was going back to the data team saying we need a unique row ID within the data lake. The other caveat I'm going to put on here is that you're now starting talking about communicating between data systems. So Data Cloud is an AWS hosted application. If you're not natively in AWS and you're running Snowflake out of Azure or another data system, you have to set up the network and security teams to allow that connectivity, to allow the VPC and IPs that Data Cloud uses to connect to your Snowflake environment. And sometimes that process can take a while to work through for security teams because they're going to want to ask all kinds of questions on how it's going to work, how things connect. So keep that in your back of your mind. If you're looking at zero copy, you're looking at that capability, know that you're going to need to plan time to look at how the networks connect, how you secure those connections, how you manage the keys that are needed.
Right. So very Marketing Cloud related, or should say like any sort of linear flow program or tool related finding as well. So one of the mistakes that we made trying to potentially shorten the duration of a POC or to speed up client work is trying to adapt Data Cloud activations for the existing journey structure. So we recommend looking at the journey construct and optimizing that for Data Cloud. So this is something I heard across kind of the partner network as well. So early on when marketing activations were primary use case, maybe over the last year and a half, right? We saw lots of people falling into this trap. And so to illustrate kind of where the trap was, if you look at the left-hand side of the map here, right? So we had a lot of the clients using tools like Unica or SaaSMA, where they were moving campaigns over to Data Cloud to support, right? And so with Unica, Unica or SaaS was able to append the data and provide additional data attributes for export or to populate a data extension entry event for a particular journey. So as a result, right, the way clients had configured a lot of their journeys was using like the Unica tools or SaaSMA for journey flow controls. So ultimately what they were doing is that they were pushing in static data repeatedly into journeys, right? And they were leveraging the attributes that they could write to from those tools to determine kind of the flow controls of how a contact would flow or a subscriber would flow through a marketing journey, right? So, in order to illustrate that, right, they were using a decision split followed by a single email activity, and they were pumping people in, and then as that attribute would change, they would hit that decision split, and they would find kind of the right email message or control at that level. So no wait times were being used between activities and emails, so the contact data wasn't changing. Wasn't being referenced for decision splits inside of the application, and then exit criteria wasn't being used, right? In the current state, all of the filtering and the suppressions were happening as an additional step of the segmentation process. So I think, early on, right, we tried to kind of mimic the same thing with Data Cloud, and we found out that was kind of a big mistake, right? What we really wanted to do is take the opportunity to go back, right, and to look at Journey Builder and to also do some Marketing Cloud remediation, right, and say, what are the best practices or what are the best ways to use Journey Builder and being able to reconstruct those journeys for use with Data Cloud. So Data Cloud does not append records or data that is activated again for journeys. So just one of the things that we had to address there. So records entering journey when they first meet the entry criteria, and then receiving the first step in the linear workflow or email in the journey or series. The journey designed in that linear flow using wait times to hold records between activities and email sends. Decision splits being used to filter out contacts that complete actions that are relevant to the journey, and then setting up exit criteria to filter against suppressions and remove contacts that no longer meet the journey criteria. So just the learning here is we spent a lot of time trying to leave the journeys as they were designed. And what we determined, that was a really good way to fail, right, in our MV or in our POCs, right? What we needed to do was spend a little bit more time on the overall design and the strategy and address, journey remediation or Marketing Cloud remediation if it was warranted, right? So once we kind of crack this nut, I would definitely say we had a much easier time with implementing and with activating into journeys inside of Marketing Cloud.
So the last caveat or tip we want to leave with everybody is Data Cloud's evolving, and you want to stay close to your Salesforce team. So Data Cloud is changing. Everybody, if you're in this Salesforce ecosystem, you want to you have your 3-time-a-year releases you're used to. If you're actually monitoring Data Cloud, there's some stuff changing in Data Cloud every month. As you see, I just pulled the new screenshot this morning. Here's the April 2024 features or changes, things that changed during the scope of April outside of those big releases. The link is in here. I know the deck will probably be available later. There's a Data Cloud page where you can see the changes on a month-by-month basis that happen outside of the releases. So definitely keep an eye on that so you can see what's changing or what's actually gone to GA. If you're a partner, make sure you participate in the partner Slack channels. There's a lot of good information. Other partners are asking the questions you probably are asking. Partners, watch for pilots. You can nominate your client for a pilot. I've done that in a few different cases. It helps your clients, it helps Salesforce, and it helps us push and get Salesforce to add new features and capabilities faster. If you're not a partner and you don't have access to that, leverage the Trailhead communities. There's a couple out there I know on Data Cloud, and then another one labeled Data Cloud for Marketing. There's people asking questions in there as they're working through their implementation. There's nuggets of knowledge to be gained from there if you're just starting. The thing to keep in mind is Data Cloud is evolving quickly. I got my certification back in early 2022 or late 2022, and it's not even this. In some ways, it's not the same product as it is now. It's evolving really fast. We went from mostly batch ingestion through cloud technologies. Now we have all the zero copy announcements that came out today. So keeping an eye on those upcoming features might simplify your Data Cloud journey. And it might frustrate you too, because you might find out, oh, the thing we did 6 months ago is now we could have done in 3 weeks instead of 3 months. But that's the nature of the product evolution. And I think we'll continue to see that as Data Cloud evolves.
I would definitely second that. Other piece, right? We implemented before zero copy was available. Now zero copy is available. Clients could have taken advantage of zero copy. I would say it's been hard to stay current with the tool just because of how rapidly fast it's changing. Definitely nod to staying close to the Salesforce team. On being able to provide insight into GA and also criteria for pilot programs, right? We had the Salesforce team that we were close to, the account team, also advocating on behalf of our clients when a pilot was a good fit for our clients. So with that, We come to the end here. Any questions from the team? Anybody want to come off mute and ask questions?
Before we maybe do that, I'm just gonna go back
Yep.
up a little bit. Jacob,
Okay.
I see your question, is zero copy, truly zero copy, is data copied in some capacity? So is zero copy zero copy? Sure, it is if you're just querying the data. But the caveat is, so if you build a calculated insight, it's got to store that insight somewhere. So if I build a calculated insight on several pieces of data, that insight is going to be stored in Data Cloud. Once you activate a segment, you build a segment and you activate it, the segment DMO is in Data Cloud. The audience DMO is in Data Cloud. So it is zero copy from that. The core of your data is staying there and you're not bringing in everything. But there are some activities that are going to write into Data Cloud storage because that's just the nature of how the product works. And that's from my experience within working with the Snowflake pilot, which is now GA.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That going back up, Jason mentioned, like, and I commented on formulas. If you didn't follow in chat, that the Redshift pilot also doesn't have formulas. I haven't had a client have access to Redshift pilot yet, so that's good to know. I used to work with Redshift all the time, and again, that's where you want to deal with that type, making sure your data types are aligned. Data ingestion is non-reversible. Data ingestion can be reversible, but it's not easy. If you put garbage data, do you have an easy workaround to fix it up? There isn't an easy workaround to fix up bad data in the system, unfortunately. For an example, in your live project scenario, one of them is I literally did as I said in the extreme case. I removed segments, I removed activations, I removed calculated insights, I unmapped the model, I removed the data lake object to undo the data stream and re-implement it all the way back from beginning to end. Now I had a data mapping document, I knew what we were doing, we saved off the SQL and stuff for the insights, we knew the segment criteria, we had screenshots, but it still took time. There is no real good way to fix data up. You can do some things maybe with the batch transform, but if it's really bad data, there's not a lot you're going to be able to do to easily fix that in the system.
Matt, what's your personal point of view in terms of limiting the data that you bring in, or only bringing data in that supports kind of the focused use cases or the prioritized use cases? Does that eliminate a lot of those issues?
It can, but it just depends on what your upstream systems are. It's like one of the caveats I say is if you're using I know we're talking marketing, but if you're looking at CRM as an example, if you're using the native connector to bring in contact data from your CRM system into Data Cloud to use that as part of your profile data, if you got duplicates in your CRM, you're going to have duplicates of that data in Data Cloud. Everything in your CRM on a contact table is going to flow to Data Cloud. You can't filter that currently to say only filter the most current records. So if you've got bad data there's not a lot you're going to be able to do unless you fix it in the CRM system first. So this is why we talk about looking at your data and making sure you're bringing quality data in. So if you need to fix data, do what you can. This CRM case, if you have duplicates, well, unified profiles might help with that because that data would just unify together. And if you're using the unified profiles, you won't really notice the duplicates. But you definitely want to have clean data if at all possible. Even for small data sets, use only the data you need, bring only that in, and make sure you're bringing quality data in.
Matt, did you see the question from Umesh?
Yeah, from US. So yeah, so the data stream, when you bring in the data bundles already have been assigned types, whether they're engagement, profile, or other. So the all subscriber one in particular comes in as a profile data stream. Now I talked about that yarn example, and one of the things we did to get around this is we actually unmapped that data stream. So while we couldn't really delete the data stream, we did unmap it from the DMO, and unmapping it from the DMO, then the identity resolution no longer looked at that. But that only just postpones the problem. The data is still going to be there at some point when we want to use that data as part of a unified profile. And so yeah, to continue UMass question, the profile data stream would count towards our profile count, and it definitely does, because when we activated this for a client and we're working through some use cases, Salesforce actually reached out to us and said what happened. Their profile count just shot through the roof, and they were looking at being in overages. And that's when we were trying to figure out, okay, what exactly were the overages? And that's where we traced it back to the all subscribers table. We were only dealing with one business unit that we brought in, but the all subscribers table brought everything from all business units. And that's what really killed it. So yes, it's going to hit your profile count if you're still based on profiles, Yamesh.
So I would say, one of the things to look out for there. So this particular client was running different organizations in the same Marketing Cloud instance, partitioned by business unit as kind of the separation there of the different businesses, right? So we were scoping only a singular business for from business unit from Marketing Cloud as the data set that we were looking to gain access to, but the all subscribers table resides over all the business units inside of Marketing Cloud. So that was the kind of caution there. Like, just make sure you kind of know what you're getting into, and you have your arms around what is on or in the all subscribers table in your Marketing Cloud instance.
That's most of the questions. I mean, I see Kyle, you answered one in chat for, how we're talking about, doing journey builder stuff using multiple journeys, one for the entry event, one for contact data. Yeah, we Kyle agreed. That's definitely how you probably have to do it. So you can have your contact data one, keep data current, and your other journey. Take advantage of that. Is there any more questions that aren't in chat that people just want to come off mute? And
I
I know
think, yeah, we covered everything in the chat. There are some personal messages sent to me directly. So I think I shared those as well. And I
Okay.
see one more question from Ricardo. What would happen to the Salesforce data extensions we have if we use the Marketing Cloud connector to integrate MC and the Sales Cloud? Do we still need to integrate Sales Cloud to Data Cloud? Will that create duplicates?
So I think it's going to depend on the use case, right? So I think in our scenario, the reason why we didn't go down that path is the client originally had set up Marketing Cloud using email address as the subscriber key. The client was also going through a sales and service transformation, and was consolidating and migrating to a new instance of CRM essentially. So while we were in the process, right, we were leveraging Data Cloud to create activations in Marketing Cloud, and we did some remediation around subscriber key leveraging Data Cloud in that case. So there were some complexities to that. I would definitely say the primary considerations are going to be what you're leveraging for the subscriber key, and then what you're trying to do with the application, right? So the Sales Cloud integration to Marketing Cloud is fine. It works well. We've used that for years, but again, it's going to accommodate all of the data that is in your CRM, right? So if you have additional data that you want to bring in, that's part of your unification process, and that you want to activate on, maybe that's the use case for Data Cloud there. And then just how you manage keys is going to be part of the context for that question.
That helps. I think those are all the questions that I see as of now.
Jacob had one more.
Jacob added a couple of points. So, I mean, I'll start with the second question first. Have I heard complaints about cost versus Snowflake? I haven't, but I'm sure it's going to come up. And the challenge there is they're they're not, Snowflake and Data Cloud are complementary in a lot of ways. They're not competitors in some ways, but the challenge is that if you use zero copy, ultimately you're going to pay no matter what. You're either going to pay Salesforce based on your Data Cloud consumption, or you're going to pay Snowflake based upon your compute and storage consumption. And as we found out, if you happen to attend any of the webinars last week, Data Cloud consumption, there's some consumption charges around querying the data from like Snowflake, or sharing the data to something like Snowflake. There are some charges and credits being charged for consumption there. And the way it was described, and I think what they're referring to is they're basically they're charging that based upon network traffic because you're shuttling data between various systems, sometimes competing clouds. So there's network costs from AWS that factor in for data in, data out that are being charged and paid. So if you have a large volume, you're chewing up a lot of network throughput. So I'm sure that's where it's going to be interesting conversations to see how people use zero copy and how you balance the charges, what's in Snowflake versus what's in Salesforce. How are we handling credit consumption conversations? Part of it is getting those use cases dialed in. Only bringing the data you need. And that actually is the one thing that's helped people realize only bring the important data. Don't bring everything. If pick on Snowflake again. Snowflake's got like materialized views where you can filter the data set down. If you've got an order table that's got 10 years of order history, you don't want all that in Data Cloud. It's not that valuable. You might only want the last year, the last 2 years. That's where you probably want to use some materialized views, limit that data set down so you're using a lower volume. I'm sure Jason would probably agree with me. I'm sure he has one. We've got spreadsheets where you try to estimate what consumption charges are going to be. Okay, we're doing 1 million profiles for identity resolution. We've got 10 million contacts. How many credits are we going to burn if we run identity resolution? All right, we don't want to let that run in a full thing, but once every so often. You have to look at how often is your data changing. If you connect, I'm dealing with in a CRM case, this native CRM connector refreshes on every 10 to 15 minutes and provides upserts, data changes, kind of that upsert deletes. Every 2 weeks, it does a full refresh. So you think about, you're consuming your credits there. If you do a full refresh and the records are updated, that starts to impact identity resolution and all the other things that are downstream. So having I will say I'm working with a client who's in the digital wallet pilot. So we've been able to actually look at the digital wallet. We can see kind of a day-by-day basis how many credits are being spent. So we can go back and start to look at activities. I still like to see more alerting and more, have a calculator to pre-learn it, but at least we're able to start to monitor it a little bit. But definitely it comes down to preparedness. You've got to know your use cases, know your data volumes, and then you sit down with a spreadsheet and kind of start doing some estimates. Do you need to update this every day? Do you need to run this daily? Do you need to run this hourly? You have those conversations of real-time costs more than batch. Does your data change where you need to run a batch every day? Or can you run a batch transform once a week? Those are the kind of questions we're asking to kind of help constrain consumption.
That's a good one. I think the other follow-up question is, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
You can hear you. Yep.
Are you starting to see more clients potentially look at bringing in data but doing no identity resolution based off the cost? I'm starting to see a couple of those starting coming my way, and it was a head scratcher at first, but now looking at it going, interesting. If your data is really in a clean enough spot, but why would you be using Data Cloud in that facet? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I haven't encountered it yet, but I'm not surprised it's coming up. You still the value in Data Cloud is really going to be that customer 360, especially when you move beyond marketing case. Yes, the marketing case, you get that segmented activation and that tie to marketing cloud. That's your CDP use case. But when you get into the CRM use case, that customer 360 is the power that's going to do everything. Because once you know how somebody interacted with service versus what they were sold versus the marketing campaign email they got, and you get that, and now you can figure out what the next best action is, or you take that and you feed it to Einstein to generate the updated email for their contract renewal. That's that power that's there. And I don't know how people are going to work with that if you don't do the identity resolution, because it means you have to have an MDM solution or something handling that before the data is coming in. And I don't know about any of you, but I have exposure to MDM projects. Those are complex. And because of the way MDMs work, where you, instead of being a system of reference, you're trying to get to that golden record, you have different business units complaining on, well, my data is better, your data is better, is junk. Those tend to be long implementations, and there's a lot of business battles around MDMs. So I'd be curious to hear where your clients go with that, Jacob.
I have an opinion on that. I would like to add, even though this is not my webinar to speak on, but So if you don't use identity resolution, there's no way to tie the engagement activity happening in Marketing Cloud to any of the data that's coming in from any other source. So unless, as Matt is saying, unless you have something coming in from an MDM system and that engagement data is going directly to that MDM system, you can't do any like engagement based marketing. So
That's a
it
good
seems
point. I mean, it is. Sorry, Jason, keep going.
Oh, I was done.
Oh, okay, cool. So I interrupted you. My bad. So yeah, I mean, it is based on the MDM component. It's clients don't want to seem to let go of their conception and what they view as MDM being the best possible solution out in the market. And it's a fun conversation to have with them, to walk them back from the idea of, well, I'm mastering my record, but I just want you to orchestrate it within the Salesforce environments via Data Cloud. And you're like, is that really going to get you the value you need? It's just an interesting ecosystem. So sorry, I'm just venting with you all.
The other point, what about the contextually aware activation, right? Like folks come in through Service Cloud, they may give you a different email address or a different first name. How do you ensure that you activate in a contextually aware way? As data comes in through different source systems, right? So I think that would be kind of the other piece that we'd want to look at or explore.
And I'll bring
Appreciate it.
it back to what if you listen to the partner success team or Arvind and the team who led some of the boot camp series, know your use cases, because that's what's going to decide it for you. If you have a use case that you could do that with, try it. But the reality is the power of Data Cloud is in that unified 360 view. And so if you don't do that in Data Cloud, are you really taking advantage of what Data Cloud's meant to be? And that might be part of your assessment. Is like, okay, maybe Data Cloud is not the tool for you. And that's, Salesforce will say, Data Cloud should be the tool. But there are cases maybe their Data Cloud is not the right tool. You want to still use Marketing Cloud, or you still want to use the CRM, but you need to use something else. That's knowing your use cases is what's going to help you to make sure you have the right fit for purpose, plan in place.
Okay, and that's an interesting and insightful conversation. So this is much needed. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thanks, everybody.
And thanks, Kyle. I would like to take this opportunity and thank you both for this epic session. So this has covered a lot of insights, a lot more than what I expected. So I would refer this to anybody who is planning to implement or who is in the implementation phase. I think this is a must see, must attend session. So we have this recording and I'll be posting it at the earliest possible. Thank you very much, Kyle and Matt. And thanks, Jacob, for all the questions and all the insights as well. And thanks, Jason, for sharing the insights over the chat. Thanks, everyone, for joining this session. And we'll meet again next Tuesday for the next session.
JB, just one more thing before you go. Folks, feel free to link us up on LinkedIn, and our email is just firstname.lastname@ibm.com. So if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to reach out to Matt Moses or myself, Kyle Lassen, directly. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good one.
Yep. All right. Thanks all.